we all heard what Omar said, and it's a whole catalogue of not just the United States policy in relation to detention in the USA, in Guantanamo, but around the world. The abuses that took place are documented, and part of our talk is talking about the two sides of the one story. Most people, or a great number of people, have heard our side, but your side has yet to be told, and your side in particular in relation to the few soldiers like you who've spoken about some of the abuses that took place. Can you recognize some of those abuses that Omar mentioned, and what did you feel when you witnessed them and encountered them?
I mean, all those things sound pretty familiar in part particularly for how the camp is set up and what it's set up for, and generally for the mindset of the guards as a whole. I mean, I don't really know how to...
In relation to some of the abuses that you knew that had taken place, that made you feel in trouble, what is it that made you feel in trouble and eventually come along after you were released from the military and do what you're doing now?
Well, I mean, I was always against, I've been against this entire conflict from Afghanistan till now, and seeing what happens in Guantanamo Bay, and the physical abuses are horrible, and those do exist. As Omar said, those things are prevalent, and you know, they're definitely there in Guantanamo, but it's primarily just being there, just the time spent there, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all day, every day, inside of a cage, walking up and down these cages. I mean, it just fundamentally, you know, it's a horrible thing to watch. You know, if you just imagine, like, looking at one person, if you like took two of those desks and like put them side by side and said, you're not leaving this amount of space for 7 years, and you just watch that one person, you watch that person lose their mind, then multiply that by 650, and then just be in that environment all day long, every day. I mean, it's like having a TV with all this crazy noise going on all the time. It just really screws up your brain. So after seeing all that, I just knew that after seeing humans treated like that, I can't come back and bag groceries. I can't come back, you know, nothing was normal after that. Food didn't taste right, nothing tasted right, nothing was right, you know. The world's screwed up, and I can't come back home and just go back to just being an American and running around throwing dollar bills at people and buying things and being self-obsessed. I mean, things have got to change, and first and foremost, some apologies have to be issued about what happened, and no one else from America is qualified to make those apologies, except for our government, and the government's not going to make those apologies. And I can sure as hell tell you that the people in the Army aren't going to make those apologies. And the American citizen is just too naive to really make those apologies and understand what they're making them for. So, I mean, I feel like I have to do this. Somebody has to do this.
And you're a brave man for doing it. There was a time when a couple of weeks ago you met all of us former detainees, about 12 of us sitting around the dinner table, and you, the American guard, all of us Muslim men who've been detained in Guantanamo Bay, and you, one skinny little American sitting at the table. Did this feel surreal? Did you think that when I go back home, I'm going to have to pay a price for this? I mean, not at the dinner table, right?
Well, I mean, I guess the thought crossed. It was definitely surreal. Don't get me wrong. That was definitely a pretty absurd moment in my life that I'm not going to forget anytime soon. And you know, the thought crossed my mind. Like I could very well have to pay for this when I get back home. I have no idea what's waiting for me at the, you know, like when I check in at the passport center. That could be pretty exciting. But you know, that's just I mean, sometimes some people have to take some risks. So I mean, when we got in contact with one another, when I contacted you, one of the things that struck me about your whole story, as it were, was your age. You're only 23? 24.
And a half?
Yeah.
But also, just your feeling towards us as detainees. You mentioned a term which still resonates in my mind, and that is that you said you'd become the equivalent of a concentration camp guard. What did that make you feel?
I think I would say that it made me feel about just like anybody would probably imagine what it would feel like to know that you're going to go down in the history books. If you imagine back and you think, you know, like everybody wonders, you see pictures of Nazis walking around in concentration camps, and you wonder, like, what the hell was going on in those kids' minds? You know, like what were they doing? How did they do this? How did they go to work every day? How did they wake up, tie up their boots, put their, tuck their little pants into their jack boots, and like put their jacket on and button it up, and then put their cap on and go work in a concentration camp? How does that happen? And I can tell you exactly how it happens. Your alarm clock goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning. You wake up and you put your boots on, you put your jacket on, and you go to work, because that's what you got to do. And if you don't, you go to jail. And I mean, we're as a nation totally desensitized. I mean, I don't think that the reality of Guantanamo Bay is hit yet. I don't, and not just Guantanamo, but our entire detentions policy in the Middle East, of which Guantanamo is just an icon. I don't think it's hit yet, and I don't think we've come to have that historical relevance to understand that this is truly a concentration camp. And it made me feel pretty sick that that's how myself, all of my comrades in arms that's what we're going down in the books as.
Your comrades in arms, many of them you train with basic training, and you grew up with them in a sense in that part of your deployment. Did they think that what was taking place was also objectionable, immoral, just like you, or were you one of a kind?
I'd say to the extreme element to which I find it ethically objectionable, I am kind of one of a kind. The other guys were more on the of the mine is but to do or die, not to question why mentality, where we were in the military, we signed a piece of paper that made us government property, so we are the equivalent of a Humvee or an M16, just something that has to do a job, and that was our job, and they did it, and they didn't really think about it as something that they should feel guilty about or anything. They just said, we're here, these guys are in cages, somebody's got to give them food, somebody's got to give them toilet paper. That's what they brought us down here to do. We're not the court system, we're not the military tribunals, we're not the special forces that grab these guys, we're not the Pakistani government, we're not, we're just, we're just a bunch of toothless hillbillies, rolling around in this crazy top secret camp, and we're just gonna do what they told us to do, and that's it. And they're to this day some of my best friends and some really good people, and they were just stuck in some crazy stuff, and they kind of shut themselves off and did the job, and but. Yeah, they didn't necessarily say, like, this is terribly wrong, but they knew that the detainees were human beings, and then there were people who didn't.
Those people who didn't, you described different types of detainees, and one of the things that different types of prisoners. One of the things that me, as a Muslim, and Omar and all of the other detainees former detainees, former prisoners, that we believe is not to exaggerate and not to do injustice to the decent people, the few decent people that we came across over there. I met many soldiers who were good, decent people, and I've been in contact with some of them. But you've been the only one who's actually come out so far, and in a public arena, in a public platform, spoken with former Guantanamo detainees about your experience. But you've described at least some of the soldiers there as being psychotic. What did you mean by that?
Well, I'd like to clarify that, because that was something that I really should have clarified and has caused me a great deal of anxiety from the time I first said it. There are people in the armed forces whom I've met whom I would assess as not understanding other human beings' emotions.